everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. Today I'm joining the creative design team in a video collaboration featuring mothers. I know from personal experience that this is a holiday that can be difficult for some of you, so I have created 3 little gifts you can make for anyone who needs a little pick-me-up this Mother's Day. I am going to show you how to create these 3 seed packet treats and share some watercolor techniques with you. I hope that you take the time to make a few of these and put a smile on someone's face. I'm going to be showing you how to use these seed packet stamps to create 3 watercolor projects. I will be heat embossing these images using black soot distress oxide ink and clear embossing powder onto some watercolor cardstock. I'm going to place the watercolor cardstock smooth side up onto the platform. Then I'll brush the cardstock with some powder using my new favorite anti-static tool. I'll stamp one of the images onto the cardstock, then I'll rotate the cardstock and stamp a second image. I'm going to sprinkle these with clear embossing powder and heat set them to create some raised designs. If you are going to use distress oxides on watercolor paper, you're going to need to sprinkle the embossing powder on the image right away. These inks dry quickly on watercolor cardstock. If you are a slow stamper, you might want to heat emboss each of these images separately. If the ink dries too quickly, the embossing powder won't stick and you won't get the raised images for your designs. Off camera, I've stamped the tulip and strawberry images onto the watercolor cardstock and heat embossed the images. I have 2 of each of the designs so that I can create some layers for my projects. Now we're going to pull out the watercolor paints and I'm going to show you how to add some color to your images. I do want to apologize for the ugly band-aid on my finger. I had an incident with a paper trimmer in my craft room yesterday. Who knew that paper crafting could be so dangerous? So I have started with the lavender image here, and I'm adding some watered down mauve pigment to the flowers. You're going to notice that I'm not adding color to every single flower. I want some of those to remain white for now. We're going to be adding layers and layers of purple color to these flowers throughout the process, allowing each layer to dry in between. While the mauve color is drying, I'm going to add my first layer of green. This is a lighter shade of an olive green, which I'm going to brush onto the stems and leaves. I like to water down my pigment for the first layer so that I get a lighter color. This allows me to add some darker hues later on in the process. As the flower and leaf layers dry, we are going to shade in the banner. This second banner is going to be cut out and layered over the other piece. I'm going to be using a flat water brush for this technique. I've placed my pigment onto the glass mat. Then I'm going to drag the edge of the brush through the color. I'm going to place that painted edge against the top of the banner and slowly drag the brush across the top. I've moved the location of my watercolor paint here so that it's easier for you to see how I'm dragging that flat brush through the pigment. I am only allowing the pigment to land on the edge of the brush so that I can blend that color across the banner. I'm going to be adding color to the top portion of the banner and the bottom portion of the banner. And then I'll come in with some darker gray and I'll fill in the shaded areas. I'm going to repeat this process with some pale green watercolor. I'm going to be layering that color over the gray shading that I've already added. Again, I'm using that flat brush. I'm applying the pigment along the edge of the brush, and then I'm going to use the edge of the brush to blend the color across the banner. While the banner dries, I'm going to go back and add another layer of color to the lavender flowers. I've chosen a darker shade of purple, and I'm going to drip this color into a few of the flowers, leaving some of the areas that lighter mauve color and others white. These flowers are so small that you really can't add much detail to the petals, but you can add dimension with layers of color. If we had just used one shade of purple, the lavender would have felt flat. Adding various hues of purple, pink, and mauve, and leaving some of the areas white, gives the illusion of shadows and highlights. On the leaves and stems, I'm going to add another layer of color with a lighter shade of green. Now, this is hard to see with all of the little details on camera, so I'm going to show you what it looks like on the tulip. Before I do, I want to show you what the completed project looks like with all those layers of color. Isn't that sweet? All right, let's go ahead and move on to the tulip. I've already added a layer of deeper green to the leaves and stems. While the paint is still wet, I'm going to add a layer of lighter green to the leaves. The two colors are going to bleed together. After these layers dry, I'll come back and add another layer of color to deepen the shadows and brighten the highlights. Now, you might be wondering why I'm skipping over the coloring process of the tulips. I didn't want this video to take you all day to watch, so I chose to leave that part out. I will be sharing a live video in my Facebook group showing you how to add shading to the flowers, and I'm hoping to complete a reel for each one of these images so that you can see the entire process of adding watercolor to the stamp designs. Now I'm going to move on to the strawberries. Since I've already showed you how to color the banner and leaves, I'm going to skip that part and just show you the strawberries. I'm going to be using a wet on wet technique. I'm going to start by using my brush to add clear water over the berries. I have found that wet on wet is much easier on larger pieces because it lets watercolors do what they're meant to do, blend and flow. I'm going to start with an orange red and add it to the darker parts of the berry. Then I'm going to come in with a deeper red and add another layer of color, allowing the two to flow into each other. While those layers dried, I went and added shading to the leaves, just like I did with the lavender. Now I'm going to add another layer of color. I'm going to be adding some red to deepen the shadows, and I'm going to draw the color out towards the center of the berry. It's going to blend into the other colors and create another layer of dimension. When creating with watercolors, there will be times when you want to blend wet colors together and allow them to flow into each other, and times when you want the colors to dry so that you can layer more color on top. This is something that I am still learning and practicing. When you are adding shading to the strawberries, you're going to want to bring in some pink and yellow hues. The pink is going to create some highlighted areas on your berries, and when it blends with the red, it's going to soften some of the harsher lines. The yellow is going to make it appear like the berry is still in the middle of ripening, or that it has sat on the ground for too long. If you grow strawberries in your garden, you know that they don't all look perfectly red everywhere like in the stores. A few of them do have some white or yellow areas. Once all of the colors have blended, I'm going to let this dry, then I'll cut everything out and show you how to assemble the projects. I have cut all of the items needed for these 3 projects, and I have cut out the images from the watercolor seed packets I made. I did have to fussy cut these out, but that wasn't too difficult to do. You can see that the tulips are just cut as a rectangle. If you're not a fan of fussy cutting, you can cut them as shapes instead. I'm going to start with the strawberry seed packet, and I'm going to be making a treat holder for a friend. This packet was cut using a metal die, then dry embossed with an embossing folder. I adhered 2 layers of craft paper together so that this pocket would be a little sturdier, and I used score tape when I assembled it so that it would be strong enough to hold a treat. This little packet has a flap at the top. You could fill this seed packet with your favorite flower seeds or some chocolate for your mom friends, and then fold the flap closed. I'm leaving it open so that it will hold a treat bag. On the front of the packet, I'm going to add the strawberry seed image I created. I have cut around the main image for the front of the packet. Then to add a little dimension, I cut out the strawberries from the second image, and I'm going to adhere them to the front using some foam tape. Now I can fill this with some fun treats for a dog mom friend of mine. This is just a skinny treat bag with dog treats that I tied up in a bow and added some cute little tags to. There are a few little pet items you could add to this seed packet, like paw salve or cat toys. I would love to know what you would add to your little treat envelope. Please share your ideas in the comments below to inspire the other viewers. The next item we're going to make is this tag. This would be a wonderful addition to a gift any time of the year, but it's a great pick-me-up for those who need a little warmth on Mother's Day. I cut the tag with my Cricut machine, but you could cut out the shape by hand or with a tag die you have in your collection. On this part of the tag, I used one of my faux stitching dies to add a little bit of texture. I'm going to adhere this pattern paper to the base of the tag using a little bit of adhesive. I'm going to brush some vintage photo ink around the edges to give it a little bit of distressing. Then I'm going to add some vintage washi tape across the top of that pattern paper to give it a nice aged look. This tulip seed packet was cut into a rectangle shape. I layered a piece of craft cardstock behind it, and then I'm going to layer this onto the tag with some foam tape. Below the tulips, I'm going to add a little sticker sentiment that says, "Collect beautiful moments." This has been distressed with a little bit of ink and popped up with some foam tape. At the top of the tag, I'm going to wrap some jute twine and tie it into a decorative knot. I'm going to trim the ends and fray them a bit to give the look of a rugged bow. For a little added contrast and texture, I'm going to add a wooden heart, and now the tag's complete. This would look so cute attached to a gift bag or a potted plant. The third and final project is a little card that you can give to your friends. For this card, I cut a background from some beautiful sage-colored pattern paper, and I cut 2 leaf frames. One frame is cut from white cardstock, the other cut from vellum. I fussy cut around the lavender seed frame, and I cut out the banner and the little 5-cent circle. These are going to be layered in the center of the card. I'm going to layer the vellum onto the cardstock using some score tape. If you have vellum tape or want to use liquid adhesive, you are welcome to, but I have found that a continuous line of score tape is the perfect adhesive under vellum. It doesn't show through like most adhesives. Now, this score tape is a little bit larger than my frame, so I'm going to have to trim it with a craft knife before I adhere these 2 layers together. Here is where the project gets a little tricky, and you have to have some patience. The score tape is unforgiving and super sticky, and that vellum is thin and delicate, which makes it a little difficult to line everything up. I found that it worked best to remove the backing from the score tape 1 or 2 sides at a time. Then I slowly lined up the vellum frame over the top. This vellum leaf frame was rotated 180 degrees. I didn't want the leaves on the 2 frames to line up with each other. Rotating the vellum made it look like 2 different cuts, and it created a really fun layer with all of those leaves. I love how the vellum looks on that frame. To pop this card up off the card base, I'm going to add some thin foam tape around the back of the frame. This design would make a delightful little shaker card if you wanted to add some acetate. I'm going to adhere this frame to the pattern paper to create a beautiful little panel for the front of our card. I'm going to adhere this to a card base, then I'll add the lavender seed image to the front of the design. The The lavender design is going to be placed on this card with some thick foam tape. Then I'm going to layer the banner over the top with another layer of thick foam tape. Behind the banner, I'm going to tuck the 5-cent circle using a thinner foam tape. I'm going to add a few embellishments to this card off camera, and then we'll take a look at all 3 projects made today. The theme of this collab is mothers, but I know that many of you may be struggling with this upcoming holiday, so I thought I would share some projects you can make for your friends, whether they be dog moms, kid moms, moms that did not get to be moms, or women in your life that just need a pick-me-up on Mother's Day. All 3 projects were created using stamped seed packet images that were shaded with watercolors. The tag on the right is such an elegant little piece with layers of pattern paper, washi tape, and those beautiful bright yellow tulips. The layered lavender card has so much texture on this clean design, but it came together beautifully with the vellum and the mini pearls. The last creation is a fun one for dog moms, but you could fill this seed pocket up with just about any treat you want to give this Mother's Day. I'm going to share a few close-up photos of these projects so that you can see them in a little more detail. My goal today was to show you gifts you could make for anyone who needs a little pick-me-up this Mother's Day. Not all of us have moms, are moms, or were able to be a mom. These little creations were designed to bring some sunshine into your life and help you put a smile on someone's face. All week long, the creative design team will be creating Mother's Day projects for you to enjoy. In the description below, I have links to each member's channel. A few teammates have not posted their videos yet, so make sure that you are subscribed to each one of the channels and select that notification icon so that you're notified when they post their Mother's Day creation. I have also put a link to the playlist for you to view. Go ahead and save this link so that you can view all of the great projects when the collab is complete. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.